This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. Hello, it is I, Old Gingerface, here with you as always. Thank you for being here, everybody. A little bit of an announcement right up top. I have a new YouTube channel. In addition to what I'm doing here on the podcast, I got approached by a small company that had a channel. They were looking for a host for body cam footage. We struck a deal, and now the channel Sergeant Steve is a real thing. So if you could go there, subscribe, like, check it out. If you like body cam breakdowns, this is the channel for you. It's been really fun. There's 2 videos up so far. They have a professional editor that puts it all together, all the footage and graphics, and it looks really slick. I mean, I could definitely not do it on my own. I'm happy to be partnered with these guys. The whole Sergeant Steve name, I guess it's a little bit on the nose, but these guys know what they're doing, and they said it's a good name for a YouTube channel, and it should work out well. So please wish me luck. I'm hoping that it would take off and we get all kinds of views, and it could be another way, another source of income to help support the podcast. So we'll see. But for now, it is up. It's live. There's 2 videos. I would appreciate it if you guys would subscribe to it and check the videos out. See if you like it, and like, comment, all those good things to keep it or to get it to take off and be a huge monumental success for old Gingy. So thank you guys if you go and check that out. I truly appreciate it. Today's show, very excited to have him. He hails from one of my favorite cities that I visited, from the great city of Nashville. He's a retired sergeant who did 16 and a half years with the Metro Nashville Police Department. He was a recipient of Life-Saving Award, Meritorious Service Award, and the Investigator of the Year in 2011. He now works with first responders with PTSD and substance abuse, helping them find recovery. Without further ado, let me bring on the great retired Sergeant Scott.cothran. Hey, I'm happy to have you on the show, brother. I'm excited to hear about the great city of Nashville, Tennessee. Before we started talking, I mean, you might not think it's great. You had to deal with other things. But when I was there 10 years ago doing the tourist thing, it did very much feel like it's definitely a city, but it feels like a town when you're there.
Yeah, it's very, it almost feels small, but it's not. There's lots of cool things to do, a ton of history in Nashville. Everybody should visit at least once.
Absolutely. We did get, a cabbie did try to rip us off when we were there. I will say that. It's the only negative thing I have to say.
Okay, that's good. That's good then.
When we were there, we went to the Johnny Cash Museum. I like the Johnny Cash Museum actually better than the Country Music Hall of Fame, I'd say. It was more intimate. It had handwritten letters from Johnny Cash and like his interactions with fans. It was so neat to think that he would be like spending the night in like a strip motel, handwriting responses, like 2-3-page letters back to just random fans that wrote to him. I'm like, this guy's unbelievable.
That is pretty cool.
It was really cool. But when we were there, they had the country music awards were in town.
Okay.
So there was a lot of, you guys were out there blocking off intersections. And, nowadays when you get in a cab, like your passengers have Google Maps. So you sit in the back and you open up the route to see if the cabbie's screwing you. And this guy went way outside where he needed to go.
Wow. Funny.
Way outside.
Yeah.
And I'm looking out with my father-in-law and he's like, F this. So as soon as we get there, he just calls the guy right out, just in an old school dude way. Hey, you're ripping us off. Like right. You are ripping us off. You're a liar. And the guy,
how long ago was that?
About 9 years ago, 10 years. And
it's grown dramatically in the last 5. It's unbelievable, actually. But it still has that small feel to it.
That population. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I bet. Now, when you were on, what specialties did you do? Did you just go through patrol and patrol sergeant, or did you do some other stuff?
No, I wasn't in patrol a lot. I did my time in patrol, B detail, C detail, right at the beginning. And then I got into specialized units, and that's just kind of where I went in. So I worked bike patrol in the inner city. I worked on a flex team in West Nashville. Flex is basically it's a proactive unit. You go out and do stuff depending on high crime areas, and you can try to combat crimes being proactive, which was great. And then I fell into my love of, I moved to the street drug unit in West. So we did drug buys, we did prostitution stings, search warrants every other day, just had an absolute blast. And then I went from there to Special Investigations Division. And I was part of the gang unit. And so I had a gang that I was, responsible for. And then, we helped each other out, but we did a lot of stuff with ATF, a lot of wiretaps, and that sort of thing. That's when there's a case I did with DEA. That's when I got the investigator of the years for that. It was a case into
Nice.
the 98 Mafia Crips. But then I moved back over to narcotics, which is they call it a big vice. But there we did T3s, wiretaps, search warrants left and right. There was a 10-person team, 9 guys. It was one female, sergeant, lieutenant, and it was one of the best. And it was one of the best teams I ever worked with. Everyone was handpicked. No one really wanted to take off because you didn't want to miss something. But it was a good thing to work because our bosses, if we were doing a deal, we had free reign. Anybody, if you saw something dangerous, could call it off. Just call it the deal. We don't have to, try to explain what's going on because it could be too late then. So it was one of those units where everybody was really trusted. And we had people at times see things that were dangerous, about to get robbed, stuff like that. Because we dealt with the big stuff, lots of money, and that sort of thing. But that was probably my favorite unit. And I would say probably 8 out of 10 of us have retired from that unit. And we're all about the same age. We got a lot of guys left, but it was probably by far the funnest time. So after that, I got promoted to sergeant. I was only a sergeant like 8 months when I retired with my whole story. But I remember when you get promoted, they put you back in patrol.
Yeah.
So I hadn't been in patrol in 14 years.
Put that uniform
now
on.
I'm supervising kids that were even older than me when I started. And I'm just like, wow, this place it's really changed. Because when I started police work, I was the second youngest on the department for a long time. The younger person than me was younger than me by 2 days. So I look at officers now who are 21, and I think they're no way. I was like, God, do we do that stuff? Were we that bad? And the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
But it definitely was it was more of an eye opener because I like the vice stuff, the gang stuff. That's where I was really good at. Really good at plans and operations and search warrants and that kind of thing. So
yeah, it probably all seems so much simpler when you go back to patrol and you're just kind of like backing up a guy in an OUI or a irate person pulled over for speeding, whatever.
It's really incredible. Like the changes that happened while I was inside, doing that kind of stuff it was really eye opening. And I almost had to learn to do a lot of that stuff again. It's just something we never really dealt with for a long time. Yeah,
totally. It's kind of like when the first place I worked, I had a sergeant that he said, I like it when the guys come out of academy and come on the job because they actually show us a bunch of new stuff. Like what's the academy teaching now for this? And it's always a little different, or there's always some new thing, that you missed during your update or whatever. So it seems like the kind of patrol does patrol. So they're good at that. They know what.
You're exactly right. And I just, people used to say, they'd say, well, what you do is really dangerous. And I said, no, it's not. And I'll tell you why, is because I always had 9 people with me at minimum. We had a plan. If the plan didn't go the way we wanted to, we didn't do it. There's no drugs worth one of our lives. Right. And so I've always said this, that the patrol guy who's answering the 911 hang up, that's the dangerous job. By the time usually we do a deal, I've already researched, I know everything about the guy, that kind of thing. It's those 911 hang-ups, the domestic calls, and all that kind of thing that are truly, truly dangerous. And I had just spent so much time as a detective. I just didn't deal with them a ton. I definitely had some, but there's a lot of guys out there because like the patrol guys, they're the first on the scene to the deaths, whatever it is.
Sure.
And they really see more. I was really lucky because the majority of my career was just fun stuff. No one messed with us. We did a great job.
Nice.
Yeah, lots of dope, lots of money.
Yeah, you reminded me of a buddy of mine I had on a couple of years ago now, but he was a Chattanooga cop, and he went to a 911 hang up where he he said it's only because I was so new in my career that I took it so seriously. So he went, wasn't gonna just brush it off. He showed up, he went to the door, the door opens and there's a guy with like his leg half filleted, and this white supremacist biker gang member opens the door, and the guy's behind the guy on all fours going, "Help me!" It was a hitman. He was torturing a guy.
Oh my God.
And the guy called 911, and the guy took the phone from him, and he goes, half the senior guys would have blown it off, but here I am now with this, attempted homicide. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing how things just kind of switch in a second. It's just crazy.
Right, absolutely. Scott, can you go back in your career when you were a young copper in Nashville to the first call you had that you would consider a hot call, the first, adrenaline dump you had?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Yeah. So when I was, like I said, I was a rookie. This is in the 99, 2000, 21 years old. Once you graduate the academy, you ride with field training officers for 2 months apiece, 3 different. So you got 6 months of on the job training. Well, by the time, I got to my last rotation, the numbers were kind of off. So they gave me my own car and said, "All right, you're by yourself. Here you go." So I was actually by myself for a little bit earlier. And I remember the funniest things. Like, I remember being so scared to just stop in a parking lot, because I don't want my sergeant, to think I'm not patrolling and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
the one that stands out to me the most, especially, it was Central, young officer, 4:00 in the morning. And I'm out trying to make traffic stops. Now, around 4:00 in the morning is where everybody liked to eat breakfast. So no one was really around. But I was in this area that was known for stolen cars, drugs and stuff. And I liked this van up. It was a minivan, actually. And he just guns it. He's gone. Now, so I'm putting out this pursuit. It's really like the movies. Like, it was Wheeler Street. So if you go down Wheeler very fast, you jump and like the sparks fly. And that's what the chase was like.
Like Dirty Harry in the hills of San Francisco.
Oh my God. I could still see the sparks flying everywhere before he jumped, but, it kind of got a little bit ahead of me and made a turn. And when I came around the corner, it was rolling, the car. And so I put out on the radio that, I can never forget, Scoville Street. And I can't remember what the cross street was, but, there was a 1 block. So like, Scoville and 10th and Scoville and 11th are actually on the other side of the interstate. So it's actually separated. So I'm putting it out as if I'm actually on the other side of the interstate. So everybody's looking for me. No one can find me, and I'm actually I'm just a block off of what I said. But like I said, it was the interstate. So I've got this van at gunpoint. I'm sitting there calling it out, and, all the guys finally find me, and we get up there and they are just gone. And so I've held an empty car at gunpoint for like 15 minutes as they tried to find me. And the funniest, my lieutenant was wonderful. The next day at roll call, he said, "Hey, is this the person you were chasing?" And he held up a blank sheet of paper. And I was like, "Okay, that's good." And it's one of those, it was like that. I remember, it's hard to explain unless you bet that just truly dump of adrenaline. Just, here we go. I'm chasing bad guys. This is what I've always wanted to do. And I ended up being a rookie and looking dumb. Like, it was pretty funny. And so those little things like that, they really stand out to me, because a lot of that stuff, it was really fun. The guys, the camaraderie and stuff like that. And I remember a guy pulling me aside after that. And he said, "Look, man, we eat between 4 and 4:30. Like, don't be out here doing this stuff." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he had to calm me down. But, being that rookie, I wanted, be in the hottest part, arrest all the bad guys. But they're like, "Yeah, but between 4 and 4:30, let's let us eat real quick, and then then we can do it." So that was pretty funny.
That's funny. Yeah, you gotta carve out a little time,
Well, when I was so embarrassed when the lieutenant held that piece of paper, and it was so funny. I got embarrassed, and I died laughing. I thought it was great. I thought it was priceless. I don't know if you could do that now anymore. This was, a long time ago, but yeah.
Hazing. That's illegal hazing.
Oh yes. I love that though. It was always, that kind of stuff was always fun for me. Just the great stuff. I don't think they do it much anymore, but it was really a good time. It really built the team.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great, dude. I remember one time I went downstairs to a locker room to use the toilet, and I was new, and I was on shift with some senior guys, and I came down, and my gun was spread out about 15 feet across the bench, starting with the guide rod, then the slide, then the spring, then the trigger, the slide lock, and just my gun was completely extrapolated and taken apart on the bench because I left it in my gun belt in front of my locker. I mean, the police department's secure, but
yeah. So unless you go our one way now, you can't. Yeah, you can't do that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm like, guys, what if we had a call and I had to put my gun together? Like, well, you would have had to done it fast, you know?
Yeah, we could try. That's funny.
Yeah. So I agree too. And in perfect response from you, all you can do is laugh at yourself. I mean, you're never going to win. You can't like try to stand up for yourself. You just eat it. You just self-deprecate and you go, okay.
Yeah. And that's what, I think a lot of people throughout our career with everything that we see, it seems like sometimes we could be callous because we're making jokes and all it is really, it's self-preservation, because, we all know it can get so bad, that's the only way we can get through it. And I think sometimes if, someone's here, they're like, man, I can't believe you'd say something like that. But it's really just about getting through that, whatever scene it is, deaths, all that kind of stuff. But because I got to where it wasn't the bodies that bothered me, it was families, the live families that I had to deal with and stuff like that. And it was so sad. Yeah, it was just awful.
Yeah, I mean, that is always a hard part, especially when you go to a body and then it's like, you get all the people going and you do check all the boxes. And then it's like, if the family's not there, now it's time to talk to them. And it's like, oh, this is the worst part.
Yeah,
absolutely. Scott, can you tell us your strangest or most bizarre thing you dealt with on the job?
It was hard. It's hard to narrow that one down, but I'll tell you, I think one came to mind because it was just so weird. It was when I was in the West CSU drug unit, really good informant. We would do buys all the time using informants. We use informants more than we did it ourselves. So we were buying from a guy, ounce and a half, 2 ounces of coke from this guy at a time. Pretty good amount of money. And we thought he was a decent sized dealer, but this day is just, it was unbelievable. So I had the informant wired him up. We sent him. And this day, for some reason, they didn't do the deal where we normally did it. Right. We have them on the wire, we're following them, but the bad guy takes him to an apartment that we've never been to before. So, we got it saved. Okay. We got him parked. And so the bad guy gets out and he goes and we see which apartment he goes in, comes back out and, he gets back in the car with the informant. We hear the deal's done, good takedown. But what happened was, occasionally when you're like coming in to take someone down, someone like, there's no point in squealing the tires, and all that kind of stuff. That happens, well, today or this day, a guy did that and the bad guy saw it. And so he steps out of the car and starts to run. Well, we all pull up and he dropped what really sounded like a pistol, something very hard. And so he turned back to get it. And when he did, one officer thought it was a pistol and fired a shot at him. And so when he fires this shot, this guy just falls. And we're like, oh my God, he's like, what just happened? Yeah. And all of a sudden, the guy stands up and takes off running. And we're still in shock from what happened. And my sergeant's like, chase him, And so as this guy's running, he is throwing coke every which way. I mean, and I'm thinking, man, this is
yard sale.
Yes. And so he is getting it down. And he ran down this huge, it was like a bunch of open grass and stuff. It goes down to a pond. And so we're chasing this guy. He's pretty quick. And some of the guys, if you're running downhill, how you kind of get in front of yourself, you end up rolling. That's what it was like for everybody, was just falling. So he got down to the pond and he bit the bag of coke. It was a big bag of cocaine, bit up like a grenade and chunked it in the water. And so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but cocaine will dissolve in water, and I'm thinking they actually tackled him, but I've seen this pond, I see this bag go in, and I'm like, I've got to get this. This is our evidence, Yeah. And so I just jumped straight in the pond and it was a bag of, I'm just holding this big mushy thing of cocaine right here. And the guy didn't get hit. But as we're going back, I'm thinking, like, I was furious because I thought the informant had let him take the dope. But that's not really what happened. Because I came to the informant, I was like, man, why'd you let him take that? And he goes, he didn't take it. I was like, no, he threw it in the pond. He goes, no, I've got the 4. And we had 4 ounces of what we took off of. And so he had absolute 4 ounces of coke. And what he had another 4 that he ran with. And we ended up, he was all freaked out. He was terrified of what happened. But, I'm still holding this big mass of cocaine. I'm soaking wet. Now it's starting to rain. We fired a shot at the guy. So now ID has to come out. Detectives have to come out. We got to take pictures. And I'm not kidding when I say I was wet for 12 hours. It was horrible. Ugh. And so we ended up we ended up going to the apartment where he went and got the coke, right? And so we knocked on it, got a response, and what we ended up doing was freezing the scene. So there was a guy there. I still remember his name. There was a guy there, so we just took him into custody, went and wrote the search warrant for the apartment. So then we went into the apartment and searched it. And so we got 4 ounces that we bought from the guy, another 4 scattered out along the trail, so we had 8 there. But we go to this apartment and come to find out the person who owned the apartment worked at the criminal court clerk's office. He had access to all these records and all this kind of stuff. And so we found a little bit of coke. We found, money and all that kind of stuff. And there was a guy that was there and he was sitting on the couch and he wasn't saying a word. Dead quiet. Wouldn't say a word. And it looked weird. And so right as we were about to get ready to end it, one of my partners, Ryan, he goes, "Hey, move that pillow next to him. There's a bunch of cocaine behind it." And we're kind of like, "What are you talking?" Like, and he kind of looks down at it. So we move it. There's 26 ounces of coke next to him, next to where we sat him. He was just behind the pillow and he wouldn't, he didn't say a word. And so what we ended up getting was right at a kilo coke,
Wow.
2.2 pounds. The guy that was in the apartment was not long after killed. He was shot. He was called out of a restaurant in South Nashville, and when he went out there, somebody shot him. He ran back in and died. But the guy who it was kind of creepy because like the guy who had the apartment, he had all of our records. He had all that kind of stuff. And the way it went from 0 to that was insane. Because I'm not kidding. Like once shots fired, like I said, I'm still wet from the pond, and then it poured down rain. So we have guys standing over the evidence with umbrellas so we can get pictures of it. So it doesn't it doesn't dissolve too. But yeah, we ended up doing that, and it was probably $40,000 or $50,000 cash, a kilo of coke, and I can't remember what happened to him in court, but he was definitely guilty. So, but it's crazy because sorry, bud.
So you imagine like in a public trust position like he had, they would have thrown the book at him.
Yeah, no history whatsoever.
Weird.
By all accounts, the guy was wonderful. Everybody respected him and liked him. It was just kind of one of those freak things that happened that you can never expect, and just that day, the guy who was going to buy it for us, or I guess do the deal, he just happened to not have it and he had to go over there. So it was just by happenstance that all of this happened. We fired a shot at him. Thank God we didn't, he didn't hit him. We're in the pond, we're, all this kind of crazy stuff. But I actually really thought that the informant had let him run off with the dope. I was so mad. And the guy was probably like, "Look, man, I've got the dope right here." And that's kind of when it all started going into, it all started making sense then.
Right.
But yeah.
I got to ask you, Scott, how did the guy who fired the round end up?
He's fine. Yeah.
He didn't, no discipline for that or anything?
No, it's justifiable. It was one of those things. It's like, I can't remember exactly what I remember is he dropped something really heavy. It's because you could hear. I actually heard it from where I was at, and he went back down and picked it up. And when he came up, he fired a shot at him, but he didn't hit him. But I thought because as soon as he shot, the guy fell down. And I was like, "Oh my God! What just happened?" Yeah. And then when he took off running, it was like we're all just like frozen, and our boss was like, "Go get him!" And so that was pretty funny, but. It's one of those, it's, you start out one way and then, it just ends up in so crazy, I never would have thought that buying an ounce of coke from this guy's going to end up with getting a guy in the clerk's office. Thank God we got it, because there's how long he'd given information and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Those people get in those positions. It is wild. When I was at Backgrounds, working for the city of LA, I heard stories about people who, cause we check tattoos, everything. And, they try to explain them away like little crowns and like Latin King stuff and other stuff. And, you find out a dispatcher or a cop is, as soon as they get access to CGIS, they can run plates for the bad guys. They can, tell them when they're being watched, what the cars are. And it's a problem. It's kind of rare, but it does happen.
We've had in Nashville we've had quite a few that ended up in federal prison. And, that's the thing that I like. People don't understand, I think, is that I don't care how much you hate bad cops, we hate them more because they hustle it bad, and someone had asked me, like, "Have you ever had a problem investigating?" And I'm absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because if they're doing, those are the guys who make us look bad, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of great guys. The last guy, I do know this, he was arrested by the FBI. They took his badge and flattened it and then cut it in half and it's mounted at the academy for everybody to see it. So, those, I think that is few and far between. But like, I think to me, like when it does happen, it's awful, and those guys, I would do anything I could to get those guys, in jail. We've worked on several cases with officers. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
By the time we got it in vice and gangs, because when I was in gangs, we didn't do like discipline, like, he cussed or something like that. We did work officer cases like, hey, he's robbing people. And so we would have to investigate those. But none of us ever had a problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, because cops are, well, I think it's a special kind of person, but they are ordinary people, and they do get in like a exorbitant amount access to information. I mean, you can just sit on the side of the road and run a plate, social security number, address, everything, their picture, their criminal history. You can get everything just from a license plate. And I think we kind of take that for granted a little bit. I mean, how powerful that can be. I've had friends be like, they're renting an apartment to somebody, and they're like, hey, can you run this guy's, BOP for me? And I'm like, brother, you understand, if I run that and he's on probation, they're going to call the police department. No, number one, it's unethical and you can't do it. But if I did it and then they call me and say, why'd you run this guy's BOP? Like, they keep track of this stuff. You can't just use it as your own, background tool for make sure you get a good renter. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, it's what's crazy sometimes. It's the people who are doing that, and like, there's a few that I helped train, and it was shocking. It really was.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons. Like in Nashville, you can be in a drug unit for so long, and that's it. So what they do, and the theory behind that is like, you're going to limit the ability for someone to get corrupt. And this happens a lot. Like, okay, this dope dealer is making all this money. I'm busting my butt and I'm making half of what he does, And so they really rotate them out quite a bit, because that's what can happen. People can get in that mindset. And so usually in Nashville, it's 5 years, and then they rotate you out, because that's actually how one of the officers, that's what happened.
Yeah.
It was the money. Mm-hmm.
I've seen that. I've heard that from buddies too that have worked other places where there's like cops will do all kinds of justifications because they feel like, no one likes us anyways. This job is hard. I've been on 15 years. I've accrued no wealth. I've been bad with my money. I've been divorced twice. So you go to, you yank a car that has $5,000 cash in it, and it's on the road. What if we just submit $3,000 to evidence? Were they going to believe this drug dealer over us type of thing?
Yeah, we did a dogfighting ring one time, and it was connected to a drug case. But we went back and we ended up rescuing like 30 or 40. A serious dogfighting operation. But we walked back in the woods, and within we heard the guy had the dope money and all that stuff. Within about 5 minutes, we found $250,000 in the woods, in just like a bag. And it was like, to me, no amount of money is worth my freedom, but it was like, I could see someone, some of these guys who get in that way, like, I can't pay my bills. Here's $250,000 in the back. It was over. Yeah. It was about $275 in the backpack.
Yep. That's why we do credit checks for backgrounds to see where you are financially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The guys going through a divorce, is it substance abuse? Like, it can be a number of things. To me, it was always like, man, there's not an amount worth me going to jail,
No. Yeah. I mean, it can get bad. I've known cops that like went back to like living in their parents' house because the alimony and child support was so high. If they didn't do extra like overtime or detail work, their paycheck weekly was like $300 take home.
Yep.
They're in
exactly
that kind of spot. Oh no.
Yeah. It's it can be difficult, but we get through it. So
yeah. You just got to maintain your moral compass.
Mm-hmm.
You got to.
It all worked out. It all works out. Just a little bit of faith.
Yep, absolutely. Amen to that.
Cool.
Scott, can you tell us about some very intense or terrifying calls you went on?
The first one that comes to mind, and there's quite a few. Some are pretty quick stories, but May 2010, we had a 1,000-year flood in Nashville. The neighborhood that I lived in was basically 3 neighborhoods connected, and it was right on the Harpeth River. So when the flood came in, it flooded about half of Nashville. I've never seen anything like it. And so we had gone to the back of the neighborhood that I lived in, and we helped. The water had gotten up to like the first row of houses close to the river, and so we got an old couple out of there, got them squared away, and then went back kind of really over to my place. And then someone came around and said, "Hey, there's a lady trapped with a baby." And I'm like, "Here we go." So I had 3 or 4 buddies with me, none of who were cops, but we get back over there to the back of the other neighborhood, and I mean it's maybe a mile away, not a mile away, but the water had already overtaken 3 streets. That's how fast it came up. Never seen anything like it. And so we get there, and I remember it was me and my best friend, and we hear this lady screaming, and then we see a bunch of people standing like around. I really honestly, it's not a joke. I really think a few more were firemen. And so I was like, all right, we got to get her out. So they were like, they wanted to tie a hose to me, like, and I'm like, you're like, I know what's going to happen if that hose, you're going to drown me. I'd rather take my chances swimming. So I ended up, and I had a plan. It was like, all right, I'm going to jump in, and it's going to, push me to the fence, and then I'll just climb over and get in. We'll get the lady out type thing. When I jumped in, I was completely wrong about what was going to happen. It shot me off to the left. I hit a tree. But let me tell you what's really cool is I heard the splash behind me. My best friend jumped in right after me. Just nice. Right in. He's not a cop. He just came. So what we ended up doing is we did get pushed way down, but we were able to get back to the house. So by the time we got to the back of the house, and what's weird, it's very strange, is it's right there. What's strange is walking through someone's house in waist deep water.
That's gotta be so surreal.
So we had
weird.
Yeah. So I went upstairs, and the lady was super nice. And come to find out, that wasn't the lady with the baby. She was on down, but that lady right there was terrified. Her husband was in Iraq fighting. And I said, "Come on, we're going to get you out here." And she was like, "Wait, can you please get my dogs?" I said, "Look, if we can come back and get your dogs, I will." She wanted the dogs and her flag, the American flag, off her house. And I said, "Right now, your husband want us to get you out of here. If we can come back, we'll come back. I swear, I promise you." So we get her out in the backyard, and I had a life jacket on. Basically, I would just take mine off and put it on her and them people we got. But and I told her, this is weird. I said, "Man, we're going to jump in right here. It's going to push us down. Don't freak out. We're going to hit, and then we're able to walk out." So that's what he did. So we jumped in together, and I was just holding on to her, but it really pushed us to a more shallow spot. So I was able to walk her out. And so at this point, I was just like, we just need to go knock on every door, because that's we need to do it now because the water was coming up so fast.
Is this all runoff from mountains?
We had it was a massive storm, massive rain. And I believe some of it came from water released by the dams because they were worried about the dams breaking. But it ended up it was absolutely incredible. And so we started knocking on doors. Here's funny. So I remember my best friend, who's not a cop, he kept saying, "Hey, slow down, just slow down for it." And I'm like, "What's wrong with you? Like, come on, let's go." And what had happened was when he jumped in the water, the current took shoes off his feet. So now he has no shoes at all. And that's how fast it was running. So we ended up, I knocked on this door and I opened it. And I swear to you, it's when I opened this door, there's a pair of ladies' heads come floating out right to him. And so he's put these women's shoes on his little feet. And I still have those shoes to this day.
No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because if you really think about it, if you're not in that profession, not many people would have jumped in with me. That's just the truth, But so we went door to door. We got to the very back of this part of the neighborhood. It was kind of eerie because I was like, well, if we get swept past these houses, we don't know where we're going. Like, that's it. We're going down river. But I do remember at one point I was standing on top of a Nissan Xterra, and the water was still waist deep. And I'll never forget that. So what happened? So when me and him jumped in, our other buddies went and got a ski boat. So they went actually. So it was me and him. We got another lady out of the house. We got all of her cats out and stuff. And so they were able to come down and pick us up in the boat. So on the way back, I said, "Look," I said, "stop by here. Let's get this lady. Like, I want this flag and I want these dogs for this lady." So in somewhere, I don't know where it's at, someone has a picture of us in a ski boat. I'm holding the flag, and the dog, it's just a cool picture. But it was one of those things. It was like, it really felt like I needed to get those dogs in that flag. So, she was terrified.
Yeah.
And later, probably 2 or 3 months later, her husband came home and I got to meet him, and he was, of course, grateful and stuff.
Oh, I
But that
bet.
whole day was crazy because I would go home after like swimming like that. I'd go home, get a shower, warm myself up, all the power's out, and then I would put new clothes on, tell my wife I wasn't going back in, and then go back, start swimming again. I think
And
I
you
ended up
weren't working when this went down.
No, I was off, but then, obviously you start working.
Right.
And I got 22 people out,
That's
the
awesome.
flood. And it's kind of, well, I tell you, the scariest part of it was the next piece of the neighborhood over. It was moving so fast, because it would move so fast, we'd ram the boat like into, by the front door. And then I would jump off and go in to get them and bring them out. Some of the ones I had to swim through the front door.
And was there any worry that the power was still on? You could be shocked or?
No, it never even crossed my mind. And it was one of those, so we went to the back of this house, and I remember piggybacking a lady out, and what I remember about is I kicked the coffee table. Obviously I'm in like chest deep water here. So we go and get her in the boat, and we came around the front of the house to head back up to get her out. And when we came around the house, the boat shifted. Like it almost, I don't know how to explain it other than we came around the front where the current was, and it shot the boat down about 15 or 20 feet instantly. And I was like, gosh, we need to hold off for a little bit, because it got super dangerous right there. We got everybody out. But it was one of those things. It was so weird, because, I think I went back home and probably showered 2 or 3 times, just to get warm. And I remember at the end of it, I'd never forget this. My sergeant was like, hey, a lot of cops lived in that neighborhood. He was like, hey, what are we going to do with that? And I turned around and looked, and it was a cow. And I'm like, leave it alone. He wants to be dry too, He's like, you sure we shouldn't do anything? Well, like, what do you plan on doing with it? It's leave it, you'll be fine. But it was one of those things where I don't think you could ever prepare yourself. It wasn't really scary. I never was scared. It was strange, and I know it's gonna sound weird, but it was a fun day. Like, it was just something that is never gonna happen again, probably. I'd never ever seen that kind of devastation. But we didn't lose anybody in that neighborhood. We got them all out. Shortly after, they did an award ceremony, and all of the guys who helped me got an award from the police chief for stepping up. It's a civilian award, so that's where I got the life-saving meritorious. And all of those guys got a letter from the chief and the mayor, and they got to come to awards. It's awesome, because it's one of those things. It was like the guy, my sergeant was like, hey, anybody that can help us? I'm like, I know just the guys. They're on it.
That's great.
And so it was one of those things. It was great, and I was really glad I got to help them get recognized because of what they did. What they did and what they did for me, with me, was unexpected. They didn't have to do it. They did it because they cared. My best friend jumped in the water because he didn't want me to go alone. That's the kind of, people I lived around. And it was one of those too. And so for the next week, we're working 14-hour days.
I bet. How long before the waters receded?
It was several days. But once it went down, I think it was a 1,000-year flood. It devastated the place where I lived. Was basically 3 different neighborhoods. And the way my house actually sat, the water got within 40 feet of my house, but it sat up just enough to where it kind of pushed off both sides. But it was, I can't even describe the devastation and stuff. I don't know what, I guess what I was going to expect him, but it was so strange.
It's gotta be weird going down the streets in a boat.
Yeah. All of Nashville came together. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful time, through that devastation where, everybody was helping everybody. And it was an amazing time, because it was one of those that everybody loved there. Everybody just came together, and it was wonderful. So,
yeah. Unfortunately, it seems like it takes a tragedy for us to do that a lot of times.
It does. It's such a shame, because through that, I've met a ton of great people, so it was, you're right. I hate that it has to come to that before we do something like that. But, because Nashville was pretty bad for months and months before a lot of that stuff got fixed. A lot of the houses got to get torn down.
That's nuts, man. Do you have another intense or terrifying story?
This is one that I feel like I messed up, and it almost cost me. So when I was in the gang unit, we got with the U.S. Marshals and the ATF, and we had information. We had a murder that was in West Precinct, and the guy who shot the other guy, we knew he was going to be at a location at a certain time, and so it was. And actually, the guy who we're looking for had already been locked up for shooting at police. Actually, shot at my partner. So we know this murder suspect's going to be, it's a Wendy's by TSU. It's on Jefferson Street. So what we did was we knew, all right, there's 3 spots, so they're going to park in one. We know there's going to be one in between. Then he's going to get out and get in this other car. We already know, we know all of it. And so what he does, we all move in, take down signal given. For someone running or getting taken to custody, we were set up perfectly. Okay. For a gunfight, it was bad because we were at risk. So crossfire would hit most of us. So I do remember I pulled up. I had one of the guys from the ATF riding with me, and I got out, and the guy gets out of the back passenger side on the driver's side. And when he gets out, me and him make eye contact. And all I see is a pistol coming out of his left hand and a MAC-10 coming out of his right hand. Ooh. So it ended up being full. It actually ended up being a full automatic. And so when we locked eyes and I saw that, I could see 2 marshals, almost like I could see their heads behind him. And I'm thinking, I can't shoot. There's no way I'll kill one of those guys. So I literally was looking for a place to dive. Like, this is going to suck. Because I was probably 15 feet from the guy. And what happened is he actually, when he came out with him, he was coming up, he was looking right at me. And as I started kind of about to dive, he turned and threw them both in the car. And so, it was simple like that. Nothing really happened. No one got hurt. It all took 5 minutes. But that was one where I really stopped and was like, man, that could have been, my life there.
Could have been it.
And I don't know how well you can survive a MAC-10 flip at 15 feet, our magazine. It's just, we did find out, it was full auto, but, it was one of those moments where I said to myself, you're screwed. Like, I put myself in a terrible position, but we don't think about it like that. We think a lot of us, I think more about the foot chase than we do a gunfight.
Right.
But that was one of those times where it was like, oh, I messed that up. A lot of times too, that we would do stuff like that and do, whatever situation is, we would talk about it after. All right, like what could we have done better? What could we, all that kind of stuff. So we did a lot of training. We did a lot of debriefing. We did a lot of talks. We changed up tactics quite a bit. One of my favorite things, search warrants are very dangerous. I was the point on our team. And so we might have a guy with a terrible history and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes what we would do is we would sit on the target, wait for him to leave. He goes into a gas station, and 3 or 4 of us walk in there and just take him into custody. There's never a fight there because they're never going to fight 4 or 5 guys. And so we've now eliminated that threat from the search warrant, and that's something I think that came from our leadership and the guys. It was like, how can we do this better, safer, and that sort of thing. I hear about people doing no-knock search warrant. I can't even fathom doing that. I've never. And one of our favorite ones was, if their car was on the street, we have an officer uncover and pull up in an unmarked car, like he had hit the car, and then they go knock on the door, say, "Hey man, this is your car. I just ran into it. I'm sorry." And then they come out. As soon as they come out, we grab them up. So we take them out of the house. We take them away from the stuff. That actually is one we used to do a lot. It's actually pretty funny. But yeah, we would try to do just things like that to get people to make it a little bit safer because we didn't want to hurt anybody,
Yeah. No-knock warrants at like 4 a.m. are always like, dude, because you have to look the human side of it too. Like they know they should know they're bad guys, but to them they're not. So you kick their door in and rush in, all tacked out. I mean, there's a high chance they might, in self-defense, just start shooting you.
I would think that they would. Right. I would think that would be a natural reaction. So that we never did that. But there's one other time I just thought about this, and this is a quick one too. But we were doing a search warrant on a house in a place called the Nations. It's right by the Old Tennessee State Prison. But we were doing it was pill buys, and so we knew that there was a dog in the front yard. It was a pit bull. It was when we saw it, it was on a leash at some point, but never saw this dog do anything. Never never bite anybody, never growl. And so the day we did the search warrant, I was like, I'm really worried about this dog, because we don't know what could happen. And the dog, even if he that's what the dog, it's what the dog's supposed to do,
Right.
So I could tell you this, is that I can tell you what the dog doesn't like, and that's a bunch of guys in masks coming through that yard. Okay.
Right.
And, but I the guy that I had number 2, I said, hey, check out a taser. We didn't carry a taser or anything like that at the time. Most of us just had a pistol and handcuffs in our back pocket, and so I said, check out a taser, and I told my sergeant, I was like, look, we're going to try not to shoot this dog because I don't want to shoot this dog. And so we kind of went with the plan of a taser. It's kind of funny because the tasers at the time had cameras on them. And so when I set foot in that yard, this dog was on me so fast. All I did, I screamed. I was like, ah! And I had a shotgun at the time. It was on me so fast, I couldn't get the safety off. And I was going to shoot him. So the guy with the taser leans around me and tases the dog, who runs off, hides up. So we didn't have to kill the dog. But you see this dog on that video biting the barrel of my shotgun. He bit the barrel of my shotgun.
Damn.
But that's how fast it was. I couldn't even get the safety off. So that was actually a really good plan with the taser. But I think that's probably the scariest I've been on a search warrant, because it was so fast. I had no reaction time. I couldn't believe how fast it was. And it was like, well, lesson learned. Pit bulls don't like guys with masks, but it all worked out well. But it's a great video. And as soon as we got back, I said, play it. I want to make sure you don't hear me screaming. It didn't catch my scream, but it did catch him jumping. I tried to poke him with it just to get him off.
Yeah.
And you can see that he bit the barrel of it and hung on until he got tased.
Ooh,
it's crazy. Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yep.
Scott, you have a quite a harrowing story, like personal story through your career. Can you share a little bit of that with us and what you went through, what the accumulated trauma caused, and a little bit of your story?
Absolutely. So, like I said, my father was a Metro police officer. He did 33 years. We actually got in a foot chase together, which was really fun to do with your dad.
Father, son.
Yeah, it's awesome. And one of the best detectives I ever met. He's phenomenal. He was absolutely incredible. So he was an alcoholic. I started drinking with him at a young age. I'm also an alcoholic. And that's really, it's really how alcohol, and it's kind of might sound crazy, alcohol is not my problem. My problem is my head. Alcohol is not fix my problem. So I didn't have to think. I could be numb, all this stuff. Because we come home and our families want to know how our day was. For me and the guys that I know, we didn't get into details with our wives and kids. You don't want them to experience the same thing. So what we do is we it's like that closet where you just put junk in, you just stuff everything in there. And eventually for me, it all came out. So, my father retired, I think it was 2000. He'd been retired probably 2 or 3 years. I think 3 years. And then I found out he had cirrhosis of the liver. So, by the time I found out he was sick, that was August, and November of that year, he was gone. I found out in August, November, he was gone. And that's the sad thing. It's like more officers die by suicide than in the line of duty. That is insane to me, because I was an alcoholic through my whole career, but it's like, we don't, a lot of us will excuse our partners if they're drinking too much. Like, we won't say, hey man, you good,
Right.
But for me, after my dad died, my drinking really took off. There's a huge number of officers that only live 5 to 7 years after retirement. That blows my mind. And the reason is, a normal person sees 5 to 7 traumatic events in their life. First responders and cops see up to 900. Like, we're not designed to take all of that stuff. And what happened was I held it in so long, it almost killed me. And so I had a great career. And so I ended up, what happened was they had a newly formed wellness unit. So I went to them and said, hey, I need help. I'd reached out to my commander. My commander that I reached out to, her husband's who I worked for in Vice. So I'd known him my whole life, or for years and years. And so I just kind of told them I needed help. It's too much. I'm drinking way too much. Something's got to stop.
Because you were ready to end it all, right?
I was terrible. So I ended up going to the wellness unit. For this wellness unit, they call me the test case still. I was the first one to do it. And what happened was, and these guys are great guys, but before I always tell this story, I'm like, look, this is not the way it is now. I actually talk to these guys all the time. But when I got back from treatment, I felt I was treated very poorly. There were things they wanted me to do, like sign a return to work agreement, which means basically said, if you relapse, we'll fire you. And I'm like, I can't sign that. Because I told them, I'm like, you guys wanted us to get help, come to you, and now I feel like I'm getting punished for it, And I will say this, I met with the guys up there after I retired. We talked about what would have helped me when I had gotten back. And so I kind of laid out things about, if I'd have known, that I would be breath tested at work before I went, that's cool. Right. But after the return to work agreement thing, and now you're going to breath test, it's like you're throwing, like I felt like they were throwing stuff at me that, to see what stick. And, my career was, honestly, it was great. I never had any discipline, anything like that. But it was really an ego thing. It kind of hurt my ego. Like, I came to you guys doing what you asked me to do, and you punished me for it. Now, like I said, I talk to those guys all the time. I still work with a lot of the guys up there from Nashville, but that's just my story, and it just led me where I am today. So I'm fine with it. I ended up, when I came back from treatment, just kind of that kind of stuff happened. And then I had a friend reach out and said that they had a job. It was a private sector job, give me a $20,000 raise. And I thought, you know what, now's probably a pretty good time to bounce on that. So I just went. I felt like I was being targeted, I guess I would say. I felt like they were just trying to see what stuck. Now, I can't say I just the way I felt at the time. And, at that time too, it's like, in my head, I've done all this stuff for the department. Why are you treating me like this? My whole family works here. What are you doing?
Especially because you feel like every cop has some trepidation asking for help. And then you're like, okay, they're going to help me. And then exactly what you thought might happen starts to happen. Like you're like, now I feel like they're trying to get rid of me.
Yeah.
I never should have said anything.
Yeah. And so, my story just kind of went, I left the department. I did not want to retire. I didn't think I had a choice, honestly. And so, but I think everything happens for a reason. So I took that private sector job, hated it, absolutely despised it. The last day of the department, I'm in a foot chase before I retire. I literally got a foot chase the last day. My wife at the time was like, "Hey, stay in the office." I'm like, "No, it's not gonna happen. Like, we're doing something today for fun." But stuff like that. So you go, for me doing that stuff, doing search warrants, to sit behind a computer all day was not for me. So I ended up starting a PI company, and I've since let that go with a kind of a whole destruction, because my first time at treatment was a first responder program, kind of. And so I did that. I was still full of the self-knowledge. Like, I went there because I needed help, and then I told them how they should fix me. Just absolutely ridiculous. I didn't listen to anything. It was, but so throughout my story is like that. And then I ended up relapsing and going back to treatment. And the way my life has worked out, people say, what do you regret? And the answer is nothing. I really don't. Today, because I started, after I let the PI business go, I started working in treatment at a regular treatment center. And so by this time, I'd probably been about a year and a half sober. And so I started working with the guys, and then this opportunity came up where I'm at now, and it's Magnolia, Meadows, and Waverly. And it's we will only do first responders and military vets. That's it. If you're active or retired, if you're not one of those active or retired, you're not coming. And the reason of that is, and it's really something I learned in my first treatment, is that we wanted to create a culture and a place where everybody knows how, everybody else. Like, I can sit here and talk to you all day long, but I'm going to have an issue talking to somebody who's never had a job and has no idea what I'm talking about, And so when they come to us, and we're set up for trauma, 'cause I was diagnosed with PTSD as well. Trauma, so they can come in. We do EMDR trauma therapy. We do substance abuse. You can come for one or the other, either substance abuse or PTSD. Most of us come in with both, because that's how we're fixing our problem by drinking, right?
Right.
And so, throughout my time in sobriety, I've made plenty of mistakes. I've had ups and downs, but my life is better today than it ever has been. The relationship I have with my kids, because one thing I do realize is that, when I guess I wanted to think that when I left the department, they were going to miss me, or if I left this unit, they were going to miss me. And I can promise you this, unfortunately, they didn't miss me at all. They replaced me. The day I left, they had me replaced. And that's not saying that I didn't feel like I felt unappreciated. It's just the way it rolls, I leave the point. Someone's got to go up there, and for a little bit, it hurt my feelings. It's like, man, I did all this and you're punishing me. But today I get to work with officers that I literally have worked with, like guys that I know. Hell, I know some of their trauma. I was with them, and I get to say, this is what we do. This is what I went through. Now this is what my life is like. Because we always talk about like how bad it was and what we need to do to fix it. We rarely talk about how wonderful the aftermath, the consequence to all that stuff I did. My life's wonderful. It's better than ever. The relationship with my kids are great. I'm remarried. My wife's amazing. And there was a time where I was so scared to even ask for help. It's, that kills a lot of us. My father, he could have asked for help. He didn't have to die so young, but that's just what it is. We're prideful people. I know for a lot of us, we don't want to be seen as weak, and I think that was with me for a while. It's like, okay, because I've almost asked for help a few times. And it was like, if I ask for help, these guys aren't going to want to follow me through the door. They're not going to trust me, all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because that is what we think, but it's completely the opposite of what happens. So when I go to treatment and I came back, I was getting calls left and right about hey, I can't believe you went to treatment. It's like, hey man, tell me about this place. Like, what'd you think about it? And so we're able to help. My story,
did you
with everything that I went through.
Was it like a generalized anxiety from accumulation of a career, or was there specific events?
So the first time I went was for substance abuse, alcohol, and trauma. The trauma therapy is it's EMDR, and it's very strange. But so that is done specifically for traumas. So there are certain traumas that I would work through using EMDR, and the easiest way to it's so cool. It basically moves the memory from one side of your brain to the other. I don't know why that works or anything. And it's not going to make you forget anything. I never forgot any of it. What it does is it doesn't have the control over me it used to. I don't have, the nightmares and all of that stuff. And remember I said this too, like I was in a fun unit for many years. The patrol guys who did that, they have seen 1,000 times more than I have, and it's just one of those things like, you'll have a guy on the detail. And we had one that was, he was pissed off for 10 years. What is that? It's not him just being pissed off. It's trauma. It's PTSD. He's burned out, but a lot of us won't, we will run through gunfire if our guys get shot at, but we will not say, hey man, I think you've been drinking too much, because that's not the culture. It's accepted. But nowadays it's changing. So I get to travel around. I speak to a lot of departments. Actually, I think you mentioned Chattanooga. I was just down there about a month ago speaking with them. And I travel and I tell my story and I talk to officers. I give out my number freely. And, if there's, because one thing, it's like, you have a lot of guys who don't want to tell their department. And so my offer is always this: here's my number. You can call me anytime you want to. I won't tell you, I won't tell anything. And I could, all that kind of stuff. But when I go tell the story, when I tell my story in services, conferences, all that kind of stuff, the reaction is really good. And it's good because there's not many people out there that talk about it. We're two prideful people that we just can't just say, and I make, when I do my story, everything, there was a point where I didn't want to live anymore. There's only one reason I'm alive, and that's because my son called me. And, it's one of those times where I'd had it. Thank God I didn't do anything. It was really close, know, but, at that time, and this is the awful thing, at that time, that's the solution I thought about, everyone will be better without me, thank God I didn't do it, and honestly, that part of my story too really helps me relate to people who are in the same place, it's, but like for us where we're at, so, our program's between 3 weeks and 60 days. It depends. We've had people from all over California, New York. It's truly a great place. And what I really love about our place too, our bosses said, hey, what can we not do? And I'm like, well, if we're going to be a first responder military program, you can't take anybody else. Like, you just can't do it. Because the place I went to before was first responder, but they had an empty bed. So it was an officer's son. And then we had 2 college football. It really wasn't. And so really what it did to me was, for about the first week, I shut down completely because I don't want to tell this kid like what I've seen. There's no way he's going to understand it, right?
Right.
But me and you could sit on here and talk all day long about it, And so that's one of the things. that's one of the things we really strive to keep it is that it's 15 beds. It's small. We want it small. A lot of guys get really personal treatment, and we do female and male officers and first responders. Everybody sits together. Everybody eats together. I go out there occasionally to do groups with them. Just say, hey, ask me whatever you want to, because I've been through the whole thing. I do an alumni meeting every week with those guys. They get back on and still kind of keep updated with us and how they're doing. And so we've gotten a lot of people, several people who have come back, because the recovery, it's very difficult because most of us aren't really convinced we have a problem,
Right.
And we think, I think that I can drink if I just do this, or if I only drink, whatever it is. And for me,
I can control it. It's fine.
I can tell you right now, I can't control it one bit. Like, it's not even but it just, when I was, in active addiction, it wasn't like I was missing work. I never missed work.
Right.
Hell, I was still winning many awards, right? But what I was doing was killing myself, After my dad drank himself to death, I can't remember. The next 6 years straight, it was a bottle of whiskey every day. I mean, all it was I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to feel it, that kind of stuff. We don't know how to grieve as men, I guess. And it took me 6 years to even grieve his death and do, some grief work with the therapist.
Yeah.
Never talked about it. Never saw his tombstone. Didn't want to go back. I never want to see it. It just, because if I go see it, it's real, and, I didn't want it to be real.
It is. I mean, like you're saying about cops not thinking they really have a problem. Like just a personal antidote, like years ago, I finally got on a day shift. I'd been on overnights for 5 years and then evening, and then a day shift came in. I said, let me try this. It was through the summer on Cape Cod, which is a vacation area. Well, by the end of the summer, my routine had turned into coming home, making sure I got off on time, grilling, and drinking beer. And I did it for like 3 months, and I was up to like easy a 6-pack every single day, every day. And I never even thought in my mind that this is a problem. And only because I went to get a physical, like my yearly checkup in the fall or the beginning of the fall. And the doctor asked me how much I was drinking. And I just didn't even think. I go, I have 6 a day. I don't know, 42 beers a week. And he goes, what? And I go, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of crept up on me. I guess my tolerance got higher. And he was like, whoa. He goes, that is a lot. And I was like in my late 20s, early 30s. And he was like, you were drinking like you're in college or something. He goes, what are you doing? And I had never thought about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I could, but that's a good example of someone who just was doing it. And I probably, if I hadn't had a real hard look at it, I could have easily seen just carrying that on. I was great at work. I was fine, but I was I was hitting it hard every single night.
Yeah. And I think for me and my story is that I was an alcoholic way before I was a cop. And looking back on it, it's clear. I can really look back and be like, okay, you were. But I will tell you this: the job didn't help it at all. Because what I really struggled with then is like I could hear the screams of the family. That's in the family. I was always really bothered me, right? Oh, and fast forward to today, I've been retired for 10 years now, but I will still have, and I would call them visions or flashes, is what I call them. And I will see like scenes from my career, car wrecks, kids, but it's always my child. It's always my child that gets killed or my son. Because it's weird, and I don't know if you every time I saw a kid that was hurt or dead, they were always usually one of my kids. And it just, I still see those things, but now instead of hold it in, I call or text my wife, say, hey, I'm having these, and by putting it out there, it doesn't have the control it used to, I still do some therapy stuff today, some EMDR stuff, and the biggest thing that, I wish I would have done it sooner. I wish I would have been strong enough to do it sooner because, we all think that, it's so weak and that's horse shit. Like, it is strong to say, hey, I need help and go get that help, to own up for what you've done, what you're doing, be honest with people and really start to recover. And when I did that, my life changed completely,
and like that's the scarier thing to do.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. But it's really cool to see guys that they come in they're lost, and they don't know what to do. And the coolest thing, you see it like them on when they finally get it, And so we've had a lot of success, out of that. We opened January 24. But we're rolling pretty good now. We work with other, centers, treatment centers, detox centers, and that kind of stuff. Passing, people back and forth, taking referrals and all that kind of stuff. Because like I said, we are really specialized in what we do. Each client is what we call them, has an individual plan. It's not a cookie cutter thing. It was, all right, what's this person have? What do we need to do? And a lot of that's really done. And there's a lot of attention to detail really given to each person and what's important or what they need to work on. And it's incredible. It really is. It's a really lot of fun.
That's great, man. I'll put that in the show notes so people can check that out. And also, if you want, I'll put your phone number in the show notes if you do want people to call or text you.
Absolutely. And that's kind of, we were talking about that earlier. It's like the offer I make to people is, here's my phone number. It's not a work, that's my personal number. And if you're going through something and you need to talk to somebody you don't want to talk to your department, call me. I've been through all of it. If you need help, call me. If you can't come to us, I'll help you find a place to go. Like that's kind of the cool thing is like we work with so many different kind of people, like, because having worked in other treatment centers, I get a lot of calls still from people I worked with that aren't first responder or military. So I never say, sorry, I can't help you. It's all right. Let me give you some, some resources and some recommendations. And so a lot of people, like in Nashville, is a gigantic recovery community. It's huge. Everybody that I have come in contact with, either through a personal meetings or whatever, or working with, have always been phenomenal people who don't really, everybody kind of moves people back and forth depending on what they need. Because like if we have a guy that's come twice and we're not helping him, we need to get him somewhere that maybe something's different, And so that's kind of how it rolls here in Nashville. So
that's great, man. I love that. So having all that in mind, really popular question on the show is advice to new police officers getting on the job now. A lot of them are listening. They even listen and decide to become cops because they hear you guys talk about the profession so passionately. What would you tell the new hires or people looking to get into it?
For me, there was never any other thing to be in the police. Like my whole life, I was trained for that, right? The one thing I think I would definitely say, and I'm seeing a lot more of it now, is you have to take care of yourself. Once I am down, I can't help anybody. So it's that selfish thing of put your, the oxygen mask on you first. We deal with a lot of stuff, right? And so I kind of saw it as I was going out. I really put, on a lot of days, I put the job in front of my family, right?
Yeah.
And then when that job was gone, that family was still there. The one I put second, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I had a great career, but what's important to me now, and I've gone from having everything to nothing to having it again. I can tell you right now, the only thing I give a shit about is my wife and my kids. The rest of my family, that's it. And I love the job. Like I said, but like, today I still keep up with a few guys, but I don't talk to the guys like I used to, and we're very good at putting the department first because it's our job. And the people who are there for us, our families, we put on the back burner, and that it shouldn't be that way, but one of the biggest things is be honest with yourself. If you need help, get it. Like there's nothing wrong with getting help. Like it amazes me that more people don't do it because the job, like we talked about earlier, up to 900 traumatic events, like we're not built for this stuff. And I didn't have a bad life by any means, but my quality of life now is, I can't even describe it,
So much
and a
better.
lot of it started with saying, hey, you got to do something, and really it wasn't, I didn't get help because I was going to lose. I got help because I was going to die. Like I wasn't I didn't run around and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I sat at the house and drank. It was going to kill me. Like there's no doubt. But that's what I want to say, like to the newer guys is like, watch yourself, cause it's one of those things where, it can build really fast, but always take care of yourself. Talk to your partners if you see them down, I can't even, in Nashville, probably 4 or 5 months ago, we had a female firefighter commit suicide. And I know people who were at the house, the fire hall, and, all of them say the same thing. I wish I could have done something. It's like, you didn't know, man. Like you can't do something if you don't know.
Right.
And it came down, the choice for me was live or go out, in this job, being an alcoholic. And, the choice was easy. It was hard to make. Let me say that. It's hard to make, but it's really easy once I started doing it because I realized very quickly, like the people who are there for me are, no offense, but they're not the administration. They were going to cover themselves. They were going to fill my spot. And it's the people who, man, we just put them on the back burner. Like, and I'll say this, I never miss ball games. I've coached 40 teams between my kids, but there's a lot of times where I was working and I could have been at home, and within the grand scheme of things, that's all that matters. Just our families, man. It's been a rough relationship with my oldest son throughout my treatment and all that stuff. But today I've got a relationship with my kids where they can be honest with me about things. My youngest, I literally asked him a question the other day about if he'd ever drank, and he told me. He's like, yes. And I kind of looked at him like, I didn't expect you to say that. And he looked at me and said, I can't believe I just told you that. I'm glad you did. So it's, my wife, she said, it's really amazing that you created a relationship where they can be honest with you. Because my sons know all, they're 16 and 19 now. And they know every single thing that I've done. And I'm glad they do. Because I don't ever, it's hard to, if you look up to somebody, it's hard to think that they're perfect. Like my dad to me was perfect. He was my true.
Of course.
But
yeah.
So what I tell my boys is like, if you need help, we can work on anything, and these are things. So I share my struggles with my family too. But yeah.
That's great, man. It's great, that relationship. I had a relationship like that with my dad too. In high school, he said when I got older, like 17, 18, he's like, if you ever had a house party, you had too much to drink or something, you didn't condone it, but he said, if you get in a situation, just don't drive. And sure enough, I called him one night. I called the house. He was on evening shift in the community next door. He said, walk out to the street. He walked down, pulled up in the cruiser.
Oh, that's awesome.
Drove my drunk ass home. Didn't say a word, just like he said. Dropped me off at the house. Said, I'll see you tomorrow morning. That was it. And I felt comfortable enough to call him. I figured he's a man of his word. He told me I wouldn't be in trouble. And I only did it once because I felt awesome. so much shame,
Yeah. But that's that right there that's just like that. That's the relationship I strive for with my kids, because I have made 1,000 mistakes, and I've done things wrong for a long time.
We all do.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It's like because I really don't. There's times where people can, I don't shame you or talk about you and all that stuff. But from the beginning, I'm never going to live my life according to someone else's opinion of me. Like, I don't care,
Yeah.
And what I've been able to do with alcoholism and addiction to where I'm at today is, for me, I love it. Absolutely. And I love being a cop. But honestly, I love working with all the first responders and military guys, get them better. It's really something that has affected my whole family, my life. And it's really once you start doing a few things, it's really not that hard. It's very simple, but it's not easy, and a lot of that comes down to, what I think my beliefs or my ego or pride, whatever it is. But once, you can smash that ego that I had, I really started listening, and my life really got better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I say that to people going to a police academy. I said, it's not really difficult, but it can be hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can do it, but it is like a real pain in your ass. Like it's attainable. You can anybody can do it, almost. Well, Scott, it was an honor to have you on, man. Great stories. Thank you for sharing all your recovery journey and pointing people to a place they can get help. I'll put that in the link in the show notes. Yeah, man, can you hang on for just 2 minutes when I do the outro to the show?
Yep.
All right. The great Scott.cothran, really fun interview, really interesting, and really inspiring. Guys, if you're out there and you think you need some help, reach out. Then Scott's going to put his number up there for you. And I know I've had guests on the past say the same thing, and they've actually had some listeners reach out to him and get some help, which is I don't know, phenomenal. I mean, it's really, really cool. So thank you to him. This is a time in the show where we thank the Patreon sponsors, starting with the lieutenants. Who I'm talking about is the great and powerful Andy Biggs, Kyle Roberts, everybody, Michael Roach, Roach Machines, AI Solutions, check him out. Now to the sergeants, the handsome Lane Campbell, Gary Steiner, everybody, Adam Mihal, Tony Fahey, Seth Wright, Lauren Stimson, Jason Lau, Sasha McNabb, Sean Clifford, Tammy Walsh, holding it down at dispatch, Greg Gadboy, George Tessier, Dennis Carrasquillo, Scott Young, Dan Carlson from Burley Boards, amazing woodworker. Check him out. Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys. Raymond Arsenal, Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother. Stay safe out there. the great Elliot Sykes, Brad Thompson, Nancy Hammond, Clark LaCuff, thank you, Adam McMahon, Sheriff Ronald Long, Zachary Pleat, everybody, Jason Labrie, George Carey Otis, thank you, Dylan Mosher, John and Aaron Kate, love you guys, see you at church, Lisa Gano, Sherry Finch, everybody, Gabriel Decknop, Eric Smith, ladies and gentlemen, Sam Conway, Jackson Dalton, Black Box Safety, check them out, Marcus Johansson, everybody, Brett Lee, and Cale Oswald. Woo! The list is long, and I truly appreciate you guys. Thank you for the support. If you love the show, you've heard all the free content, and you think, I want to throw some shekels at old Stevie Boy, old Ginger Face, to help support the show, I appreciate that. Link is in the show notes. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.